Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Malik, Mr. Nandan, Mr. Jaju, Ma'am Renu Buddhiraja, Mr. Gulati, and ladies and gentlemen, and my fellows from the industry. It is my privilege to be here in this session, and the eGov sessions and the conferences are very useful for us to network and also get the directions from the government and also from the industries how they think about it. I would now give a brief introduction of the company that I represent, CA Technologies, for the benefit of the people who may not know us. Company was founded in 1976. It's an American software company. Revenue about $5 billion, and we have more than 5,000 developers worldwide. The biggest focus of the CA is in the R&D to meet the requirements of the government. As the projects come and the needs change, we try to modify and enhance our products to meet those requirements. We have a technology, India Technology Center in Hyderabad. 30% of our company's R&D is done in this R&D center. It's very beneficial for us because if the government requirements change or require any specific feature to be added, we have the support of our R&D center in Hyderabad. CA's largest focus in the country today is in the government sector. Our largest revenue comes from the government sector. A lot of our solutions today are running in the SWANs, in the data centers, in the power sectors, in the security sector of the CCTNS. The Department of Post, which came out with recent requirements, many of their projects for the infrastructure management and security will be using CA technologies. This is a kind of a flavor of our footprint in the country today. We are also working with the J&K government, and we are working on some of the projects here. Today's topic is ICT, infrastructure in the e-governance. And my takeaway from the morning session is that once we have our house in order, we have good governance, it's much easier and beneficial to introduce technology. I, being from a technology vendor, I would like to share some of the technologies which would help us in implementing good ICT in the governance. For us to introduce any ICT in the governance, we first have to see how to really create a good infrastructure, and then it's a three-way step. First, how to create the infrastructure, how do we really provision that infrastructure, and third, how do we really secure? When the volumes increase for the utilization of that IT infrastructure, the security becomes of paramount importance. So let us take the first step while we are trying to create a service for any of the government project. We can break this creation of any service into two parts. One is the creation of the infrastructure, which involves physical and virtual infrastructure both. Because while we are delivering public services via internet or mobile, physical and virtual infrastructures both will come into play. And then the management of these infrastructures, monitoring of these infrastructure becomes very important through technology. Once we have created the infrastructure which are secure and are being monitored for their health properly, it is also important that side by side we start creating applications which will be running on these infrastructures. Often multiple services and infrastructures resources are dependent upon each other, and we cannot create one service because some other services on which it is dependent is not ready. However, there are some newer technologies like service virtualization, which are available to create and simulate the unavailable internet and mobile environments today by reducing the application development time. The dependencies on the applications which are not available today can be covered up. That gap can be measured and covered up by using the softwares which can simulate, called service virtualization. This technology of service virtualization also facilitates development of multiple applications in parallel and their seamless integration for delivery of public service. Secondly, the applications which are being developed need to be constantly tested for their performance to avoid any issues that can be faced by the citizens during application rollout. The applications which have been developed, when they are being tested for a volume high peak thresholds, they should be able to withhold those thresholds. So there should be testing, and there's a technologies available to test those kinds of thresholds. And lastly, when these applications which are being developed, they have to be properly managed for their life cycle through the technologies like project and portfolio management. So this is the first step of creating any application. Let us see what kind of technologies which are available which support these three steps. If you look at the first step of creation, that is managing, monitoring, and creating physical infrastructures, there are tools which are available for the infrastructure management from CA and maybe from some other vendors too. For the faster service development, products like CA, LISA, ITKO, which can help us in creating a virtual environment for the testing of the application that we are developing, are available. Applications like application performance management like CA Wiley will help us in testing the health of the application, that how robust, how strong is my application. And the solutions like project and portfolio management, Clarity PPM, will help us in running the life cycle of a project. Let us move on to the next step. After having created an application, how do we, after having created a service, how do we really provision that service? For provisioning the service, once the infrastructure and services have been created, it is important to quickly make them available to all departments and citizens concerned. For this purpose, it is important to automate the entire data center operations that will empower the departments towards self-provisioning. For this purpose, we have some of the technologies, and we suggest things like a central application store can be created, which will host successful applications and services from the various states. These can be leveraged by other states, and I think today in the morning we talked about it. Mr. Satyaranji talked about it, and this will really help us in cutting short the time and also the resources and the investments which are required for developing these applications. And then citizens or departments users should be encouraged for self-enrollment of the various applications and services. This can be achieved by solutions like identity and life cycle management, which will in turn will prevent misuse of identities. And if you look at what kind of solutions are available for provisioning, we have solutions like automation, data center technologies, and then we have the application performance management, and then we have the identity and lifecycle management technologies. These are available from CA, which have been deployed in the market with the government, and they have been tested properly. Now, if we move on to the last step after we have created a service and we have provisioned the services, when the utilization of these services start, the important step comes securing these services. For securing these services, the technologies of the kind like access control, through which the government can prevent intentional and unintentional misuse of citizen data by the legitimate users, the in-house legitimate users. The maximum threats happen by the people who are legitimate users of those technologies. And then we can have technologies like strong authentication, A resident can perform an online transaction using a combination of user ID and another factor such as PKI or secure question. Technologies for the strong authentication are also available. And then we have the technologies for the risk and fraud management. We have solutions like access control of server infrastructure. We have strong authentication. We call them CA Authminder or the RCOD two-factor authentication. And then for the fraud and risk management, we have the CA Riskminder. So really to summarize, the creation, the provision, and securing of the services, the creation and management of the ICT infrastructure is extremely important for enabling effective public service. Technology has evolved to enable government towards faster creation of infrastructure and public services, easy provision of this infrastructure and services, and also securing data and infrastructure from the insider and outsider threats. Technology can be a big enabler that will ensure that the ICT infrastructure in government delivers successful outcomes.